I remember I wasn't like other people. I wasn't particularly interested in it because it just didn't, even though there was these claims of this R squared and everything, it just seemed too contrived to me. But then when I looked at this I can sort of immediately see the relationship. I can trust, as Giovanni would say, I can trust my own eyes. Now, I also think it is possible that this thing changes or quote unquote breaks. Um, but that's okay. If this thing breaks in 5 years or in 10 years or whatever, it breaks. It breaks. It's fine. It changed. Maybe it does turn into an S curve. Maybe it flattens out or does something. But I think the chance of it, quote unquote, breaking.
Worth individuals that are older, that perhaps they don't understand Bitcoin. Is this something that would scare them away? How would you use this information?
So let's just take, I was talking with Jim Bianco, right? And Jim Bianco makes a point, like somebody in their 60s or 70s, let's say 70s particularly, right? And they're looking at something like, the NASDAQ in 2000, right? Well, they're like, I can't wait 10 years to get my money back. I might need my money in 5 years or 3 years or 4 years, right? So I think the real question, and a lot of investors like this, is not what Bitcoin going to do in 20 years, because they might not.
Negative for the price action? Do you think it's going to be a lot more subdued compared to the past? A lot of people are talking about the diminishing returns. Giovanni, you've laid it out perfectly. I'm trusting my eyes. I'm seeing the chart. Clearly, it's showing diminishing returns. What would you say to people that say, Bitcoin's, the ship has sailed. I don't have a lot of capital. I'm 20 years old. I'm just getting started. These shit coins look awfully good because they have a lot more volatility.
Well, the first thing I will say is, one, the power law should give you a lot of confidence, right? Now, every investment, of course, has risk, Bitcoin included. When you look, you never look at risk by itself, right? You look at, influencer or whatever you want to call me, a scientist. I suggest, in particular to the young people, to do a little bit more aggressive move, because if you start, you have to be also honest. If you have only $300 a month that you're putting on Bitcoin, you should do it, right? You do DCA, do this on a continuous basis. But to be honest, yes, you will be in a good place in 15 years, but you're not going to be a millionaire. And we can try to do the calculations. I think I did it a few times. You're not quite ready for retirement. One of the things you can do, if you want to show my graph, if you don't mind, and again, please understand what I mean here. I'm not trying to tell you to do anything crazy or anything absurd. You can use the power law to identify these cycles. Now, one has to understand it. You don't do anything stupid. You wait until you go back in the green area. If you do this, now we are not talking anymore about 64. I did a calculation that is an extreme calculation. Understand it, right? Like, what is the best possible scenario? And then you have to go down from that and multiply by some kind of factor, right? Alpha, 10%, whatever, that explain both your commitment to this approach and inefficiency, because we're never going to get 100% right. But if you got it 100% right, again, based under this assumption that everything repeats the same, we are talking about 1,200 pair. That is how much Bitcoin has left if this cycle continues. Okay, so now, of course,
you guys, is there's still a lot of action in Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin could go up 30-40% a year for the next 5 years, maybe even the next 10 years on average. And those are exceptionally great yields. You shouldn't be too greedy. Now, if you start saying, yeah, well, that's not enough for me, I need to go into dog coins. The problem is your, dog coins, they could lose 90% of their value in under a year. So it doesn't make sense to say, here's an investment that can give me massive volatility and you want to shoot for the moon. So I'm okay with what Giovanni's saying. I'm okay with doing some trading around using the Bitcoin power law or whatever you want to do. What I'm not okay with is you taking your money and just putting it on, on the number 22 on roulette, because you're going to lose probably. So
Yeah. Also, 30 to 40% annual return, that's compounding, right? So could you talk a little bit about that, Fred? Because I think it's like you say 30%, but if you compound 40% for 15 years, that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You make a very good point that, you took it. Let's just do a simple math. Let's say 1.4 to the power 10. Okay, that's 29 times, right? So if you could do 40% per year, right, for 10 years, right, you don't get 4 times your money, right? You don't get you get 29 times your money. Right? So these things kind of compound out, and they make it very, very attractive, and you get it 25.
So for us that don't have a background in mathematics, what does that mean? What is the significance
it means,
of that number?
Okay, so if you make a drawing, and I will have to pull it up, so let me describe it, because otherwise it will take me too long to find the graph. You see this thing, right? You draw the log, and then you see this behavior of the price. You can see it again with your naked eye. It doesn't follow. Now, it's almost striking when you see the price of Bitcoin. It looks straight, right? There are these oscillations where they go back and forth in a very regular manner. They kind of cancel each other. That doesn't happen. And the numbers, the body, right, of an organism is like a network. There are connections between the different cells. There are exchange of food, information, all kinds of things. It's like a network. It can be studied as a network. Scientists do that all the time. But, can a cell leave the network? If a cell leaves the network, it dies. It cannot survive by itself. Okay? So with Bitcoin, isn't a little bit like that. Of course, you can leave, right? You can leave, you can sell all your Bitcoin, you can forget. But in general, you will lose a lot by leaving the network. That doesn't happen with things like Facebook. You can jump ship with Facebook. You can decide, oh, look, I like X much better if there is more.
Or central bank digital currencies, or I don't know what, right? But there's going to be more of an ecosystem that builds around Bitcoin. There's going to be many, many more people using Bitcoin. So it's going to be much more like a social network. It will be a much more like, as Giovanni said, the cell network. And really, you will not be able to live without Bitcoin. So I think we're just in we're still very early days. And, but we are seeing the beginning of a new financial network. And the value is in the network. It's in what are the network effects here?
And recognize it. We'll
all come to that conclusion eventually. I feel like, we're all going to get to that same conclusion on our own terms, whatever, but we will all find the same place, I think.
Giovanni, is Fred's social media presence a power law trajectory upwards?
It's my power. My social media is unfortunately bigger than Bitcoin price right now.
It's probably one of the best place, because then you can find a link to my ex and everything. We have a YouTube channel, but please go and also subscribe, because my son is doing a lot of work in making these beautiful videos that are high-end videos with animations, all kind of things to discuss these concepts. But the website is called BIT, like BIT, right? Poseidon, like the god.com. So visit that site, because it's going to be kind of a hub for everything related to